And welcome to TH Fantasy Football Rookie Tight End Preview Show with the NFL Draft now under 2 weeks away. Today, Ed and I will be looking at tight ends, and after back-to-back years of Rookie Tight End 1 production from Sam Laporta and then last year Brock Bowers, do we have someone, Ed, who can make it 3 in a row for Rookie Tight Ends for fantasy relevance and the fantasy Tight End 1 overall?
I'm going to sit on the fence and say possibly. I think.
Oh, excellent! And we'll see you next week.
Sorry to be. I think I'll stick my neck on the line and say I don't think we've got an elite level tight end a la Sam Laporta or Brock Bowers in this year's draft class, but we have got 2 particularly really strong candidates, and then a good supporting class as well. It's quite a deep classes this year's tight end pack.
Who are you going for pick number 1 then for your tight end 1 of the class, Ed?
So, as I said, it's maybe difficult to choose between the top 2, but in the end, I'm going for, from the college that has produced the likes of Pat Freiermuth and Mike Gesicki, we've got another tight end colossus who's a former quarterback, a tier 1 prospect who's likely to start day 1 in the NFL, and that is Tyler Warren. Hugely impressive specimen. Just look at him there. He is a beast of a man. Very impressive 2024. He was the absolute superstar of the Penn State offense. Big frame, a tough player who just refuses to go down. Brilliant hands. He and Loveland, who we'll talk about in a minute, both have that in abundance. And I think the thing that stood out for me on watching his tape is just in contested catches, he is just incredible. He very rarely loses one, and he gets big yards after the catch too. If we're looking for areas that maybe might be a concern, he's still quite raw. Definitely not the finished article, but that could also be a positive. A rough diamond for NFL coaches to work with. He does struggle as a blocker. He looks like a purely offensive tight end. So that if he's going to struggle as a blocker, that might stop him from being a 3-down player. And he does get limited separation on route running. He doesn't really make himself open. He just relies on those contested catches to make the play. But against high quality NFL cornerbacks, that could be an issue. But again, a bit like when we were talking about running backs at the top end, we're nitpicking a little bit there. He is a fantastic player. Were you a fan of Warren?
I think you look at the numbers and you have to sit up and take notice, don't you? So 36% of Penn State's receptions last year, 34% of all of their receiving yards. They're great numbers for a tight end, aren't they? Is number 5 on Daniel Jeremiah's top 50. Which I think, yes, he is. Would he be top 5 last year, the year before? Possibly not. I think this draft class in general has been one that has been described as one that is chocked full of starters, not necessarily rammed with loads of stars. But he is definitely towards the top end of that. He does a bit of everything. He can catch the ball, he can run with it, he can throw it. I don't think he'll be doing as much of that unless maybe he ends up in Denver, and Sean Payton, we know, is penchant for a versatile tight end. Is it a bit gimmicky? Will it transfer to the NFL? We'll see. One interesting stat is that he had the most receiving yards against man coverage of all receivers, tight ends and wide receivers in this class. My one question mark is nearly 23. 2024 season was an outlier, regardless of that production. Was it just a case of he's older, he's therefore bigger and stronger, and he just beat up on college defenses? Is that what we were seeing last year? What will it look in the NFL? I don't know. We shall find out. We don't know with any of these. I mean, let's spoiler it now. This is all prediction. But that's my one question mark. I can see a world where he struggles to cope with NFL standard defenses. I can also see a world where he's a really efficient fancy tight end and gets loads of receiving work and lots of touchdowns.
Yeah,
sitting on the fence like you as well.
I can see him beating up on NFL defenses as well. Can I just ask you a question as we start talking about tight ends? Historically, it's been the theory that tight ends struggle in their first year in the NFL. But Brock Bowers, Sam Laporta appear to have blown that out of the water. Are they outliers, or are we now looking at a situation where the tight ends coming through are more NFL ready and NFL coaches and offenses are looking to make the most of them?
I think you look at the younger tight ends, and maybe they are hitting production a bit early. So last 2 years, at the minute, yes, it's an outlier because we've got two excellent players over 2 years. Sam Laporta didn't do it again to the same standard last year. Will Brock Bowers this year. Kyle Pitts, we're still waiting for the breakout. But you look in the right situation. Yeah, this will be the one. Isaiah Likely, and when I mention him as a comp for a player later on as well, he's where in the right system has found a really fruitful role in the NFL where he can play his game. And actually, all the things that were the question marks about him coming in weren't relevant because Mark Andrews does those bits. He'll do the other bits. Yeah, I think for the third time this show, I'm going to sit on the fence again. I think if we had one of these players breaks out and does the same thing in this year, then yeah, I think at that stage I'd go, we are seeing a changing tide. And maybe just tight ends and college teams are better at getting players ready for that transition now. Who knows? Landing spots. So Daniel Jeremiah has him going to a middle of the draft of round one. Bookie Books is very high in him. Where do you see him going?
Yeah, I think he's potentially a top 10 pick. I think he'll go in the first half of the first round. I'm going to mention these teams a lot. Broncos or the Colts are definitely looking for tight ends, and they would be a phenomenal landing spot. But fancy outlook, again, fancy landing spot dependent, but mid to late first round, probably in rookie drafts. But yeah, he'll definitely be a day one pick, 100%.
That landing spot is 100% going to decide tight end 1, tight end 2, because I don't think I wouldn't argue with someone going for who we've got at 2 as 1. And I myself have gone a bit back and forth. What I did think was interesting is Bookie Brooks had him going at 7 to the Jets. I don't see that. I don't think.
I don't know. I don't think I think the Jets are in need in a lot of positions, and I can't see them using their high first round pick on a tight end. But who knows?
Where are we going next?
Yeah. So next up, out of Michigan, and another tier 1 prospect. Who's likely to be snapped with the first round and probably start day 1 in the NFL, and that is Colston Loveland. There are some phenomenal names in the draft this year. Absolute beauty of a name. Colston Loveland, huge man, 6'5", quite young. By the time you are watching this, he will have just turned 21. So unlike Warren, he's got a couple of years on him, so that might give him an edge potentially. Another player with a great frame, perfect for the position. He's got an absolutely monstrous wingspan, great speed, and it accelerates really well as well. Tremendous hands and the huge wingspan give him like a really big radius, a big catch radius, as I mentioned, and he's a really good route runner as well. So NFL coaches will love that. You might look at his receiving yards and worry about that in terms of 582 yards, but I think that's more to do with the Michigan offense than anything else. In terms of they ran the ball a lot, so was their lead receiver, and so 582 yards does not do him justice. He's better than Warren as a blocker, but still developing, and he can struggle to create separation against cornerbacks, a bit like Warren. But yeah, an excellent prospect, and as I say, it was very difficult separating these two. Would you have Loveland second, or were you higher on Loveland than me?
If I were leading our tight end notes, I'd have gone back and forth. I think.
Yeah,
I'm really not 100% decided. I think You're right. Well, the criticisms you've got are the same ones that I've got. He's fast and fluid, but lacks a bit of strength. I think the younger age, though, so 2 years younger than the man mountain Tyler Warren, you need to have years to put on mass. He's got 2 more years to get to that size. So that doesn't worry me unless a player is extremely short and light, because you can't grow a bit extra when you're in your 20s. You can put on muscle mass. So that doesn't really worry me. Targeted on 38% of his routes, which is the highest of any tight end prospect in recent history. One of the question marks in trying to evaluate him was, I realised when I was watching the footage, going, which year is this from? Because this is a different quarterback name. He had 3 quarterbacks last year: Tootle, Warren, and Orgy. That's J-I, not G-Y. And it's tough to make a true assessment based on some excellent play. At the same time, was he the leading receiver? Because he was just the biggest, most obvious target for a constantly rotating quarterback cast. That said, landing a spot with a solid quarterback, you're then the other end of the spectrum. You've got a reliable thrower of the ball passing to a reliable big catcher of the ball. Yeah, I like Loveland, and I can see a situation where his landing spot is preferable for fantasy to Warren, and therefore he leapfrogs him in that situation. Where have you got him going?
Yeah, I think he's going to be first round. Again, maybe mid-first round. I think he probably will go after Warren. Like I said previously, the Colts, the Broncos. I think an amazing landing spot would be the Rams further down. I think he'd fit in there and be brilliant for him to play under Matt Stafford. When it comes to rookie drafts, late first, early second round in most rookie drafts, would he have that year one breakout? As we said, it's not common at tight end, but I think if any two are going to do it, it's going to be Loveland or Warren.
I've seen Bucky Brooks has mocked him at 22 to the Chargers, which I think would also be a really nice landing spot. Imagine Justin Herbert having a really reliable tight end target. That'd just be nice, wouldn't it? All round for everybody.
Yeah, everyone's happy.
If you are watching us on YouTube, please subscribe, like, and share on whatever mobile device or computer you are using. If you are listening on your podcast app of choice, then please do follow us, set us to notifications so you know when we drop our new shows. We are with you all the way from now to the Super Bowl with our off-season content, some mock drafts coming up as well, and then the flagship shows through the main season, including Fantasy Game Day Red Hot Picks. So if you're joining us for the first time over the recent weeks, welcome. Why not come aboard the good ship TH Fantasy Football and stay with us for our fantasy football journey? Speaking of our journey, though, Ed, we move on to tight end 3, and a player that I think a lot of people are torn between, but I'm interested to see where you are, because I'm increasing in my judgment on this player. Where are you at on number 3? The problem
is, after Warren and Loveland, that there is a bit of a drop-off. They're going to be the only day one picks. And I think it's difficult to split the next 3 or maybe even more. But I've gone for a tight end who, after a really quiet 2023, exploded in 2024, and that's Harold Fannin Jr. I liked watching Fannin Jr. He's absolutely unstoppable at college level last year. The most productive tight end in 2024. Very difficult to bring down. Strong for his size. You know, he's in the mid-range, kind of 230 pounds for a tight end. Brilliant route runner and can make great cuts due to that lighter size. And brilliant hands too. Only 2 drops on 171 career targets. So, yeah, a lot of positives there. I think some of the negatives come from his college, Bowling Green. Yes, me neither. And, you know, there's a bit of snobbery there, but he has put up numbers against some big colleges. Will his size put off potential suitors? He's another one who, a bit like a couple of the running backs who had a disappointing combine. Many were hoping for an elite 40 time, which he didn't produce. He isn't great at contested catches. He just struggles to climb the ladder sometimes. And that's such a key quality for a tight end. You know, that throw that a quarterback needs when he needs those few yards. And maybe he does lack the kind of athleticism and balance that the top tier tight ends have. But yeah, he isn't a top tier tight end. I'd put him in tier 2. and still an impressive specimen.
Yeah, I agree. He's tier 2 on his own in this class for me, though. He did everything for Bowling Green last year. You look at the numbers: 42% of their receptions, 50% of their receiving yards, 50% of receiving touchdowns. The offense was, where's Harold Fannin? Clearly, that was the approach for most of the season. He leads a lot of rankings over the last decade because of that as well. The criticism, as you've said, is on a small team, but you've already alluded to those bigger teams that he has played. So in the two bigger games against Texas A&M and Penn State, he still did business. He got touchdowns both of those. He was 8 and 11 receptions, I think over 150 yards in both games as well. So when he had to against big teams, he did it, and you can only beat the teams in front of you. We can't necessarily be negative on him for doing things he's not had the opportunity to do, but we like to have seen people do it, so we know they can. Smallest and lightest tight end in the class, only 20 though, so once again the weight can be fixed. Watching him play, said he's so aggressive. First option is, I am getting past this player, then I'm getting past the next one. There's some highlights where he hurdles players, he plows through players. He can do a lot. Can he do it at the NFL level? That the jury's out, isn't it? And we're not going to know that. Possibly not even next year. He could be one. We have to wait a year or two to see the best from him. Where do you see him landing? I think this is quite a difficult one to pick, isn't it?
It is. I think, I've seen him go in different ranges in mock drafts. I think he seems to me a kind of late second, early third round pick. I think we've mentioned the Chargers. That would be a lovely pickup for them. Towards the end of day 2. Broncos, Colts again, maybe second round, third round, possibly. When it comes to rookie drafts, I think past Warren and Loveland, there's so much uncertainty around tight ends in terms of where they end up. He's probably going to go mid to late second round in your rookie drafts. Again, as we always say, landing spot dependent.
I think if he does end up being drafted somewhere where the coaching staff are just in on him and they see a perfect role for him, he could be a really interesting player. I wonder if he's got a bit of an Isaiah Likely sort of path where he'll have a specific role in his team's offense and he'll be a great best ball player because he might be available later, but a player that is quite tricky to decide which is the week to plug in and play. I don't know, but I'm really looking forward to seeing where it is. He's a player I'm going to be keeping my eye out for on day 2 to see where it goes, because I'm quite interested to see how he progresses as a player and what his fantasy impact is as well. I'll be honest, Ed, at this point, after Fannin, I'm not hugely interested in the rest of the tight end class when it comes to fantasy. Am I being too negative? Are there some gems that I could be missing out on?
No, I don't think so. I think
Okay.
I do think it's quite a deep class, and I think there's bound to be someone that jumps up. But at number 4, the buzz around number 4 has grown after a big 2024 and a really strong pre-draft process. I've seen him going late first, early second in some mock drafts, which is way too high for me, but an impressive talent nonetheless. And as you can see, that is Elijah Arroyo. The wonderful name. They just keep on coming. He lined up all over for Miami and had production in a number of roles. Seems to have like a decent football IQ, able to create separation through kind of subtle movements, good straight line speed, great route running, nice hands, decent athleticism as well. Kind of like the prototype size for a tight end, 6'4", 245 pounds. Issues blocking, especially inline blocking, is a huge weakness, and that will worry scouts. He's got a bit of a significant injury history, which again might be a question mark. And the question is he a true 3-down tight end? I'm not sure he is, with that lack of blocking ability as well. He's good to look at, Arroyo, but I think that there's too many question marks at the moment for me to see him making an instant fantasy impact.
My process when I'm looking at players always starts, I'll go through, I'll make my list if I want to look at, and then I'll go through and have a look at the career stats. And I looked and thought, first 3 years, like 11 receptions in 3 years.
Mhm.
And then that's when you then do a bit of digging and you realise it's that injury impact. Coming out of high school, though, he was just behind one Brock Bowers when it came to the recruitment process there. So he was highly regarded coming into the college game. His reputation blew up at the Senior Bowl. You're right, that's really cooled off, though, probably over the last kind of few weeks again. The two numbers that intrigue me the most about him as being a sleeper in this class are 33% of his targets were over 20 yards downfield, most in the class. 53% ended up of all. Sorry, I'll go again. 53% of his receptions ended up being a first down or a touchdown, also highest in the class. There are loads and loads of questions, though. Absolutely loads of them. I still think where he's going as tight end 4, tight end 5, maybe in this draft class is far better than like for like tight end class last year.
Agreed. Yeah, I think. Yeah, as I said earlier, I can't remember which draft it was, but I saw him going. I think it was late first, which I don't think is going to happen. I think he's around 3 tight end, and who knows where he'll end up. I've put Eagles, Panthers, Seahawks, who might be looking to kind of mold a tight end over the next couple of years. Rookie drafts, he's probably not going to have too much relevance. Might be like a 4th round pick in rookie drafts. Might be worth a taxi stash. He's someone who's got good upside, I think. Out of the ones behind the top 3, he was the one that I was most excited about, hence putting him at 4.
Finally, then, for our 5th tight end, before we look at the also-rans, the most Scottish-sounding name going into the NFL.
It could have been anyone, yeah, really. Rounding out the top 5, promising talent, who I don't think is ready to be a day one starter, but he does have the skills required to succeed. And there he is. I don't believe he's Scottish, but Terrance Ferguson coming out of Oregon. Very dependable receiver. He was the go-to for Bo Nix in college before he made the step up to NFL. Big frame, like you'd want from a tight end, 6'5", 255 pounds, and consequently a big catch radius. And went up to full pace. He's got a decent speed. Cons, sloppy as a blocker. He doesn't really use his weight effectively. He's a big guy, but he doesn't use it to make those yards and to put off defenders as he really should. Contested catch statistics aren't great either. He's only converted in 36% of his targets. And I think he maybe lacks the upside of the players above him in our rankings. He's just not outstanding in any area, really, for me. But he could come in and do a job in the NFL. I don't think he's ever going to be a tight end 1. A bit of a bold call to make. But yeah, I could see him being a very solid tight end 2 throughout his career. But he's got the skills. I just don't know if he's got that kind of superstar top tier quality.
It does bode well for him that he's had decent production last year post Bo Nix. He had Dylan Gabriel throwing the ball in Oregon, who's likely to be a day 3 pick in the draft this year. So even with lower quality QB play, he was all right. You've said that contact balance is a real concern. I've put on there as well that he takes time to get up to speed. This is where you see that combination of what you see at the combine translated into game speed is quite different, because watching him, he seems to take a while to get through the gears. But at the combine, he was the fastest tight end with 4.63 in the 40. At 6'5" and 255 pounds, that's quick. That is a lot of man moving at high speed.
I feel like that running into me.
But when you see the game footage, that doesn't necessarily translate. So, yeah, I agree. I think probably at best you might have if he lands in a good role, we might have a streaming tight end fantasy football. I think this is where I sit with the tight ends. The reason I stopped being interested after the top 3 is that most rosters, Dynasty and Redraft, you've only got one tight end spot. Chances are, when it comes to your flex spots, you have got a wealth of running backs and wide receivers you're going to look at before you even consider plugging a backup tight end into one of those situations off your bench. So we just don't need as many tight ends. Therefore, we stop being interested a lot sooner, don't we? I think also the way the game is for tight ends, not many are pure receivers. There's some will really share that time between the blocking as well. And we want receptions, we want touchdowns, we want yardage for fantasy, don't we?
Indeed. And, Ferguson, I think in the draft, he might be round 3, could drop to round 4 possibly. A lot of the names we've already mentioned will be in for him. He's a bit of a dart thrower, as I've said. Fantasy relevance, can't see him being fantasy relevant in 2025. So he may go undrafted in a number of rookie drafts, but he could land in the right place and might have some value there late in rookie drafts. So before I go through the also rans, is there anyone else who's caught your eye specifically?
If I were doing my top 5, the one I'd been debating replacing Terrance Ferguson with, and I probably would have settled with Ferguson though, would have been Mason Taylor from LSU. Natural catcher of the ball, great in contested catches, not that fast, kind of counts against him, but yeah, he's one that perhaps stood out to me the most. But everything we've just said, I copy and paste as well. I don't think we're going to be talking at fancy relevance for him or any other names. Who else have you got for us to just have on the back burner when we're watching on day 2 and 3 of the draft? Day 3 of the draft, really. Yeah,
there's a few others. Gunnar Helm, another fantastic name, a player who burst onto the tight end scene in 2024. Great in the open field after the catch. Luke Lackey, nice bit of alliteration there. Quite a versatile tight end. He lined up all over the place for Iowa. And has got a real knack for finding open areas against defenses. And the final one would be Aronde Gadsden II, who to me looks a bit like a bulked-up wide receiver. I don't even know if he'll play as a tight end in the NFL, but that's what he's being drafted as and promoted as a rookie. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with him. Great strength after the catch, and a big wingspan as well.
Amazing. Before we wrap things up then, let's take a quick moment just to mention again the TH Fantasy Football Best Ball Bonanza, raising money for the Beast of Memory Cafe. Great local charity supporting those living with dementia and their carers. And at the time of recording, we are tiptoeing towards £5,000 raised all time for the Beast of Memory Cafe, which means a huge amount to them as a small local charity. So we are a best ball format. We draft around June time, and then we'll give you lots of wonderful updates throughout the season as well. It was a lot of fun. Lots of people joined last year. Please come and consider joining us again this year. Head to X or head to BlueSky to find the link there. Or if you're watching us on YouTube, head down to the comments and click on the link down there also. Well, Ed, I think that is another banger in the books. We are very excited, aren't we, next week to get some wisdom from Mr. Rich Cooling about some potential sleepers in the draft, though, aren't we?
Indeed, yeah. The man with the mega brain, he is. He knows all, and I look forward to getting some top tips from him.
Thank you very much for joining us then. All that remains to be said is, Malcolm, take.
You have been listening to Pestle and Ed of TH Fantasy Football. For more content, follow TH_fantasy_NFL on Instagram and Twitter.